Hello and welcome. My name is Vic Bhatia, and this video is going to be a follow-up on the previous video that I did, which is on installing Information Server version 11.5 on a Linux platform using Oracle 12c as the backend metadata repository. In this video, we're going to upgrade that particular install to 11.7 Fixpack 1. And there are a couple of upgrade options I'm going to talk about and then perform the upgrade. If you haven't watched the 11.5 installation video yet, I suggest that might be a good place for you to start if you want to gain more familiarity with the process of the steps involved in doing that installation on a Linux platform. And this particular video will be pretty much doing the upgrade to 11.7 from the previous install of 11.5, as I said. And I'm also going to avoid being repetitive, particularly of the concepts that have been covered in the previous video. So I urge you to watch that video. The link should be up on your screen. And then this particular upgrade process that I'm going to demonstrate here will probably be a lot easier to follow. Thanks, and let's get started. So let's take a quick look at our current setup. What we have running is an Oracle VirtualBox environment, which contains our Linux virtual machine. The Linux virtual machine is version 7.0 of Red Hat Linux. It's a variant of Red Hat Linux actually from Oracle. It's called Oracle Enterprise Linux. And so if I go into here and type etc Red Hat release, you'll see that it's running Red Hat Enterprise Linux Server release 7.0. And as I mentioned, this is a variant of Red Hat actually, which is Oracle's version called Enterprise Linux. In here, we have our Oracle database server running. We also have information server running. A quick check on the process table for Oracle processes will show that there's a whole bunch of Oracle processes running, and there's probably about 70 of them. Similar check for information server, and I'm going to check for, I'm going to filter for IBM because that's in the path of all the binaries that are running. And there's about 10 different processes running, which include our metadata server, that's WebSphere. It includes our agent, which is right here, the node agent. There's Kafka, there's Solar, and there's also Zookeeper, and you can see as I scroll up over here that those processes are also running. For the purposes of performing an upgrade, we want all information server processes up and running, and the upgrade installer will then detect the existing installation and will perform the upgrade to 11.7. The topology that we're following for this particular install is the client server topology. And what I mean by that is that all of your client-side tools that include your data stage designer, data stage director, and all of the other tools that come on the client side that are installed on your Windows client are going to be on the host machine that's running this Linux VM. So right here is my host machine, which is a Windows 10 computer, and it has what we have installed here. As I scroll down to the information server portion of the start menu, you'll see all of these tools are the client tools that are installed on this Windows desktop. And then we have VirtualBox, which is running our Linux environment containing the 11.5 install of information server. So if I go into the documentation, which I have open here in my browser, the link to the documentation should pop up on your screen momentarily. But this is really the topology we're following. This entire figure 1 that you see up on your screen is our Windows desktop computer, right? On the Windows desktop computer, which I'm calling computer A portion of the desktop computer, has the computer A and computer B both on the same Windows desktop. The client tier is installed directly on Windows. The engine tier, services tier, and the metadata repository tier are installed on computer B, which is a virtual machine. And the VirtualBox software provides the network layer so that the Windows computer, which has all the client tools, can connect through this virtual network to the virtual machine, which is our computer B, running all of these other components. So just want to make sure that this is well understood, because this is important for purposes of understanding the upgrade process. So to do the actual upgrade, you have two options, right? There's the first option is to install 11.7 as a completely new install, and then you migrate your 11.5 repository and all the other assets and configurations that you might have to 11.7. So to do that, you would, first you'd be installing 11.7 as a brand new install, and then using various utilities like IS tools, etc., you would export your 11.5 metadata, repository assets, and other things, and then once you have 11.7 up and running, you would bring all that back in, and then pretty much that would become your new 11.7 environment with everything imported into it, and then you could either shut down 11.5 separately from that, or have both running concurrently as a parallel set of environments so that you have enough time to transition from one to the other. And that's probably about the only reason I think you would want to do that, in order to have both 11.5 and 11.7 running concurrently so that you could, plan a more graceful transition from 11.5 to 11.7. So the other option is to do what is called an in-place upgrade. So what that means is, it's just exactly what it sounds like. You install 11.7 software on top of the existing 11.5 software and let the installer pretty much take care of the upgrade part of it. So what IBM does is they provide a something called a mod pack, which is available from their Fix Central website. And that particular mod pack will be used to perform the necessary work to accomplish the 11.7 software install and the upgrade all in one fell swoop. So this is the process we're going to use in this particular demo. And I'd also like to point out that the Information Server 11.7 also comes with a software component called Enterprise Search. We're not going to be putting that in as part of this demo. Okay, so now let's take a look at the files that we're going to need to complete this upgrade. First two are the 11.7 software installation files. So this is the set of files you need to do a complete software installation from scratch. So the upgrade process also uses these files maybe in a slightly different way, but you do need them even when you're doing the upgrade. The next one, which is modpack IS 117_Linux 64 package, that is the actual upgrade file set, and that's the package that you're going to use with the installer to upgrade from 11.5 to 11.7. And during that particular process of setting up the installer to use this mod pack, it will also ask you for the location of the core 11.7 software installation files. So that's why the software installation files, which is zipped up as IBM Information Server tar.gz, those two files are needed. The IS update Linux 64 11.7, that's the that's the file that you need, or the set of files you need in that tar archive to update the installer itself, which is installed in, you'll find the installer in your Information Server Home updates folder. I believe that's where it is. And then you have two other files. One is the fixpack FP1, and the other one is the parallel engine data integration feature patch. So those two are also files we're going to apply to go from 11.7.0.0 to 11.7.0.1. Okay, so let's get started with that. So I'm actually back at the VM now, the actual machine where the software has been installed, and the upgrade files are downloaded in this location. If I just do a pwd, on my particular machine, they're in /u02/software. This is the list of files. Actually, I have lots of other files here. The ones that we need specifically are this one right here, the IBM Information Server tar.gz. There is the bundle file, the bundle spec file. We need that one that contains the license for the installation. There's the client file. So this is basically 11.7 client tools that go on the Windows machine. We don't need that for the actual server-side install. There is a mod pack, which I talked about. This is the actual upgrade file set. And then I have another directory here called fixpack. If I go there, you will see that there's the other files that are part of the actual fixpack to version 11.7.0.1. So this is the file that upgrades from 11.7 to 11.7.0.1. This is the FP1. This is the parallel engine data integration feature patch. There is also a script here that we need to run. This xmdfltviews_oracle_pre-install SQL is the script that creates the objects necessary in the database to support the information governance dashboard component. And I downloaded this from this particular IBM support site. It's basically creating the xmdfltview schema before upgrading to 11.7. So if you scroll to the bottom of this particular page, you will see that there's two files. There's one to do this for Oracle, and the other one is to do it for SQL Server. Since we're using Oracle, so this is the one I downloaded. Okay, so let's start by running the xmdfltviews SQL script into our existing metadata repository, and recall that this script is going to create the objects necessary to support the information governance dashboard. So let's take a quick look inside this script and see what it does for us. So right here it shows us that to run the script, you basically have to first connect a system account to the Oracle repository. And once you're connected, you will run this particular script, giving it two arguments. The two arguments are the name of the user that owns the repository, which in our case is xmeta, and then the table space in which that repository is installed, which in our case is xmeta_dat. The script itself looks like creates a log file right here called oracle_xmdfltviews_user.log. It basically creates, looks like it's creating, it's running a create user command with the username that is supplied to this particular create IGD schema function, or procedure rather. And it's going to be using the password that we supplied at the command line. So, and then default table space is going to be the same as the table space for the xmeta user. So one simple thing I'm going to change is, if you notice that the create user command creates the information governance dashboard user account, but the password that it uses is actually the username xmeta, because that's the argument you're giving it up here. So I'm not going to give xmeta as the argument here. I'm going to give the password that I want this particular user to have when I run that script. So that's going to be the argument. So the password that I want is Oracle. So I'm going to run this thing with Oracle as the first argument, xmeta_dat as the second argument. So let's get out of the script. There's nothing else in here that we need to worry too much about. So let's go ahead and connect to our database using SQL Plus. Username is system, and the database is ORCL. The password is Oracle. So now we're connected. Let's make sure we're connected to the right Oracle instance. So I'm just going to say show con underscore name. That's container name. Let's type this correctly. Underscore name. And it says the container name is ORCL. So this is part of the Oracle Pluggable Database Architecture. ORCL is the container database, is rather the pluggable database inside the container, which is CDB1. So if I say show parameter db underscore name, it'll tell you that it is CDB1. So the container database is CDB1. The pluggable database inside that we're using is ORCL. This isn't important. It's a little bit of a sidebar, just to point out the pluggable database architecture for Oracle. So for all intents and purposes, we're using ORCL as the database for this particular repository. So once that's done, let's go ahead and run the script that we need to run, which is this guy right here, xmdfltviews. So we're going to run this. Let me copy this name, and then I'm going to go here and run it with the @ sign. So @ sign, paste that name. The first argument will be the password I want for the user account that we're going to create with this script. And then the second one is the table space, which is xmeta underscore dat. And so once we run this, it's done. It's exited SQL Plus. It should have created a log file for us. And the log file is right here. Let's take a look at that. So we're going to say this should not be that big of a file. Let's go ahead and take a look at the contents. And it says it completed successfully. It connected and it ran the script. It completed successfully. So I think there's no errors here. That's the one thing we're looking for. It should have created an account for us. We can go back inside Oracle and we can look at that account that it created and see which one it was. And to do that, we're going to go log back in. We can do that again as system account. So SQL Plus system at ORCL. Password is Oracle, like always. There's a table in Oracle Dictionary called DBA users. So if I describe that table, DBA underscore users, you'll see that it contains the username and it contains the created date. So this is the date the username was created. So if I simply say select username, comma, created from DBA underscore users, order by, since I don't know what username it created, so I'm going to say order by created, and we want a descending, so we want the most recent one on top. So if I run this, it's going to give me a long list here. Looks like 66 accounts exist here, but we'll go to the very first one to see what it was that it created for us. And here's the name of the account. xmdfltviews was created. It was created today. So we're good. We're satisfied with this. So let's go ahead and exit our SQL Plus session with the exit command. Okay, now let's go ahead and unzip some files. These are the files we're going to need for our install. So I'm going to create a folder here called install unzip, and then I'm going to go to that folder and unzip a couple of files. So the first one we're going to do is the information server, the core installation media. So let's go ahead. This is in tar gz format, so tar xvzf. We're going to unzip this IBM underscore information server file. So that's going to create a folder called IS Suite and pretty much unzip all the files into that particular location. Okay, so the unzip process is complete. It took about 15 to 20 minutes. It is a pretty big file to uncompress. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to unzip the license files, which are in this bundle spec zip file. So we're gonna go to the IS Suite folder where we unzipped the main 11.7 files, and right in here we're going to unzip the bundle spec file as well. So now we're 2 directories deep, so we're going to do unzip. Since this is not a tar archive, it's a zip file. We're going to go 2 directories up and look for IS bundle zip file. So that gets unzipped into a folder called license. And this one's usually pretty quick, so this should be done anytime. And here we go. So now this particular folder, IS Suite, comprises of the entire 11.7 software distribution. Now we should be ready to do 2 things. One, we're going to update the installer, which is another file that we have to unzip, or rather untar. And then that will update our installer, and then after that we're going to run the installer to update our installation from 11.5 to 11.7. Okay, so let me unzip the installer into a different folder. I'm going to use a different window for this. So let's go to our software download folder, and here you'll see that there's an IS update. So I will go to my install zip folder where I'm unzipping all the files, and I'll create a directory here called installer. Go to installer and untar, or rather tar xvf, and we're going to go 2 levels up to look for IS update. And that's going to get untarred into this, or unzipped into this particular folder. Once we have that, we're going to have our installer runtime, where we're going to execute that to update our installer to the latest release. Now, if you're just curious as to what the current version of the installer is, now that the untar process is complete, this is a script called updateimage.sh. This is what we're going to run to update our installer. The current version of the installer, if I go to IS home /updates, updates. Okay, so this IS home is not set up. Looks like, oh, it is set up. So let's look for updates. So cd2 updates /bin. And we should have an executable here called install updates. Let's look for the version of this. The version is set to, its currently installed version is 11.5.1.99. And once we are through with installing the update to the installer, we're going to be at a much higher version. Let's go back to the install our software download directory, which is U02 software, and in here we're going to go to install unzip and then IS Suite, which is where we have our entire 11.7 distribution unzipped. So before we do anything here, we're going to first update our installer. So I'll switch to this window and run this thing called updateimage.sh. So updateimage.sh is asking for the installation image location. This basically is the location where in your current installation, in 11.5 installation, this would represent the underscore uninstall location of your installer directory. So what I mean by that is if I go to /u02 /IBM information server And here you have, so this is your 11.5 installation. Here you have something called uninstall. So this is the location that it's looking for in for the update image.sh execution. So my current location is user to IBM information server. So I'm going to type that in here, IBM information server /_ uninstall. Okay, so when I run this, it's going to be patching the installer in the 11.5 information server location. So this takes maybe a minute or two to complete, and once it's done running, we're going to go to the 11.5 installer location and look at the current version there. Recall the previously when we did that, the version it was showing us was 11.5 dot something. So this completed, we are going to now switch our windows. This is where we are in the 11.5 installation location. If we go to updates, before I do that, let me just do an ls so you can see. And the updates / bin is where the installer resides in 11.5. So we're going to go to updates / bin, and our installer is right here. We're going to run this with the version argument or the version switch, and it's going to tell us that the version is 11.7.0.110, and previously it was 11.5 dot something, and if I scroll up here you might be able to see that 11.5.1.99. So that's what it was, and we are now at 11.7.0.110. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is create the Flow Designer objects in the database. So this is the Cognitive Designer engine, or also called the Flow Designer, which is the web-based data stage authoring tool. So we're going to create the objects for that in the metadata repository, and to do that, let's go to our base installation folder where the 11.7 software is unzipped. So that would be cd /u02/software / install unzip and then is suite. And in here there's a database support folder, and we're going to go to Unix, and then we're going to go to Cognitive Designer repository, and finally to Oracle. And this is where we're going to find the script that we need to create, that we need to run to create the object. So let's go ahead and look at, I'm just going to do a more on create user prefs SQL. And so this basically is going to create a table, and then you have to substitute your database underscore username in the script for the actual username that we want to use. And the table name is cognitive user pref, and it has the following columns. Then it's going to create some indexes and then issue some grants. So pretty straightforward. So we're going to go ahead and run this script momentarily. So let's edit this file first. So I'm going to do vi, and the file name is create userpref.sql. Let's replace the @database underscore username with our repository owner, which is xmeta. So I'm going to say xmeta dot cognitive user prefs. Same thing over here. We're going to change this particular also to xmeta. And then finally one more or two more locations. So okay, so that will get saved, and this should be run as the system account. So I'm going to go into this other window where my Oracle terminal is active, I think we'll have to go back to the location where we unzipped the file and modified that script. So it's u02/software, and here we go. So the file is right here, create user prefs.sql. Let's look at this file one more time to make sure changes have been saved. Looks like we have xmeta in there where it needs to be. So we're going to say SQL plus system at orcl. Our password is Oracle. Okay, so now we're connected as system, so we're going to go ahead and run our script. The name of the script is create user prefs SQL, so create create user prefs or pref.sql. And it created the table, index, and grant, so we're basically done with this. We're going to exit SQL Plus session. So at this point, the Cognitive Designer repository schema object has also been created, and we're ready to proceed with the upgrade. So before we can run the installer, there are a couple more quick things we need to do. One, there is a directory in var folder, so var IBM is a location, and you'll see this directory called Installation Manager. We're going to rename this to another name because when we run the upgrade, a new one will be created here. And if we don't do this, the installation will throw a warning. So I'm going to rename this as Installation Manager _old, maybe, yeah. So now that's done. The other thing we're going to do is we're in now the U2 IBM Information Server Updates bin folder where we can run the installer from. We're going to make sure our UMask is set to 022, which it is in this case. So we can go ahead and start the installer now. So to start the installer, we simply run install updates without any flags, and it's going to start the installer for us. The other thing that happens is when the installer is running, it creates a log file in a temp folder. So in this case, it's /temp/IBM IS logs. You can see that this installation log file has been started. So we're just going to tail this file. So tail with the follow flag this file. And you can see that the installer is has started a Jetty process. So it's a web-based installer. So you're going to get a web server running, and we'll simply use a browser to connect to that web server and run the installation. So let's switch to the window where we started the installer from. I think it's this one right here, and it gives us this web address. I'm just going to copy this web address and put it into my browser. So I'll just say copy and then go to your browser, and this is the browser in your Linux environment, not in your Windows environment, so just be sure of that. So paste and go. So this will start the installation process from the browser. And click on the login button, click on next. It picks up the directory where 11.5 is installed. It picks that up correctly, so we're going to retain that because we're just going to install over it. Click on next. Here it's going to ask us, are you going to upgrade Information Server 11.5 to 11.7? Indeed, that's what we are here to do, so we'll turn on this checkbox. Click on next. Before I do that, just make sure if you want to read this little document here that lists all the actions required before upgrading, you may do so. There's probably a bunch of useful information in there that, but everything we need to do I've covered so far, so you can read that for information. So here it's going to also ask you if you want to upgrade WebSphere from 8.5 to 9.0, and we do want to do that. And then in this particular field, we browse to the location where we unzipped or untarred the 11.7 installation media, right? So that's the IS Suite folder. In our case, that happens to be in /u02 software install unzip. So let's scroll down to install unzip and then IS Suite. So that's the folder we're going to provide here, and then say next, and it's going to go ahead and process that information in a second here. I think before that we need to provide credentials to our Oracle database where the metadata repository is. So all this information looks correct. The database name is Oracle SID. That is true. The repository owner is xmeta. That's correct. The password is Oracle. So I'm going to type that in twice and then click on next. The WebSphere version 9 is going to be installed in opt IBM WebSphere 9. That's what it suggests. Note that the prior version of WebSphere, which is 8.5, that comes with Information Server 11.5, is installed in opt IBM WebSphere. So this will just tack on a 9 next to it. So you'll have both versions available at the end of the install, and we'll simply remove the WebSphere 8.5. So let's click on next. And then here we're going to skip the Information Server Enterprise Search. So let's skip that. We're simply doing just the Information Server and Data Stage Engine. So we're going to add the modpack package, which is what we downloaded into our install unzip folder. So we'll go to U02 software, and then actually it's in the U02 software folder. So this is the one we want. This is the file that's going to run the upgrade for us. So we add that. So while it's processing that file, you'll see that in the log file, if I click on this window, not Oracle, it's this one, I think. So you can see that the log file is putting out a lot of information. And once the install is running, we're gonna switch to this window and watch the progress. But I'm just showing you real quick that the log file is growing pretty rapidly. So now we're just gonna go ahead and click next. It's going to ask us for Information Server Administrator and the Application Server Administrator information. So Information Server Admin is ISAdmin. Password is Oracle. App Server is WASAdmin. Password is again Oracle. We will accept the certificate that it gives us. And then I think it's going to run the pre-installation requirements check. So pretty much everything passed. There's a warning for OS revision level must support DB2 version 11.1. We're not using DB2 here, so this shouldn't be of any consequence for us. So we'll simply say ignore warning. And then we're going to go ahead and click next. And so here's a pre-installation summary of what's going to happen. It's going to install this particular fix pack, which upgrades 11.7, which upgrades us to 11.7 from 11.5. So any version 11.5 to 11.502 is okay to use for this upgrade. And the following components are going to be installed, and you can see there's a long list here. We're going to go ahead and click next to commence the installation process. So while that's running, we're going to go ahead and click over to our log file. So remember, when we started the installation process, we made sure that all the services, whether it's Oracle or Information Server, everything's up and running. So that's what it requires. It's going to shut everything down first, which it just did, and then start transferring files for the new version 11.7 into the location where 11.5 is currently installed.
Checking in on the installation progress. It's been a little over an hour. The installer is still going, and we can see that it's at this point running the XMeta admin script, which, as the name suggests, would be working in the database, upgrading the repository. Back in the window where we are, the GUI window where the install is running, you can see that a whole bunch of actions have occurred successfully. And it shows here as well that the Xmeta admin script is running right now. If I scroll up on this list, you can see all the actions that have taken place uh, for this particular upgrade. So things are running smoothly so far. It does take a long while to finish, so we're going to check back on it in a little while.
So the installation is now complete. As you can see, it took about 2 hours, 1 hour and 48 minutes to be exact. And so the next step will be to install the FixPack 1 on top of this. Okay, so let's click on Finish, and this will shut down the installation process. And we will then next unzip the patch and install that. So let's Control C out of the log file tail here. And we're going to go to our software download location, which is EU02 software. Um, and then this time we should go to FixPack because we're going to do FixPacks now. And here we have a FixPack for FP1, and then we also have the parallel execution engine data integration feature pack. So let's go ahead and unzip these two files. So we'll start with the FixPack first. And let me go ahead and make a directory called FP1. And then we'll go to that directory. And now we're going to go ahead and do a tar xvzf one directory up FixPack. And then that will unzip over here. So as soon as this is done, it's got one package file ispkg extension. We're going to rerun our installer and then load up this particular FixPack file into it and process the patch. So that's coming up next. So the unzipping process for the FixPack is complete. We are in this particular location, U02 software FixPack FP1. And we're going to go to our other window where the installer was run from last time and do the same thing, rerun that installer again. Now, as this installer comes up, it's going to create a new log file for us. So let's go to /tmp/IBM islogs, and you'll see a second log file now, which is this one. So we're going to go ahead and tail this log file now. And it's is install 142852. So there we go. So that's the log that we are tailing. Let's go back to where we ran the installer, and it should give us another URL to go to. And there, it's ready now. And we'll just copy this URL. And then we'll go to our browser window and paste it. Paste and go. And that should bring up the installer in the browser window. Click on Login. Click on Next in this window. Installation directory, make sure it's the correct one. And in our case, that's /u02 IBM Information Server. We're going to click Next. We're going to skip the Information Server Enterprise Search. And now we're going to add the package for FixPack 1 that we just unzipped. So that's going to be in U02 software FixPack FP1, and then here's the package, and say open. and we're going to go ahead and click on Next. Information Server Administrator account is ISAdmin. Let's put that in here. Password is Oracle. App Server Administrator is WASAdmin. The password is Oracle. And then say Next. Accept the certificate. And the system requirements have passed successfully. We're going to click Next to look at the installation summary. Here's everything that's going to go in for the fix pack, and this is going to upgrade us to 11.7 FP1. This fix pack runs for a really long time in the database, so I'm expecting the installation process to be 2 hours or longer. So let's go ahead and click install, and we'll check back on the installation process in a little while. So at this point, we can see that the fix pack has been installed successfully. It took, again, about the same amount of time as the previous install, 1 hour, 40 minutes. So we're done with the fix pack installation. We'll click on finish here. And I think the next thing that's left to do, first let's get out of our log file. And the last thing that's left to do is to install the data integration feature patch. And if I do ls, you can see that pxedi feature patch. So I'm going to make a directory here called px, and nothing in here, tar x vf, one level up, px e, and let's unzip that, and that gave us a package file of pxdi feature patch 2, so that's the one we're going to install. And to do that, again, exactly the same process. We're going to rerun our installer, and as soon as the installer comes up, we're going to go ahead and run through the install of the patch. So in this case, we're going to go back to our directory where the log files are created. So that would be cd2 /temp /IBM is logs, and we should see a third file show up over here, log file show up here, which is the one we are going to tail now for this install. Um, and let's go back to the other window here. We can see that our installer has come up with a URL. We're going to go ahead and put this link back into our browser, paste that in, and start the installer. Click on login, and let's click on next. Confirm the location, looks good to me. Let's skip the enterprise search component, like always, and navigate to the package that we just untarred. And so we're going to go to our U02 software, fixpack, px, and here's the package, open. And this installs actually fairly quickly. So we're going to click on next and just look at the pre-installation summary. The only thing that's going to be affected is data stage common, just um, some common components that get impacted. So it takes longer for the shutdown and startup of the information server than it takes to actually install this patch. So this should go through pretty quickly. We'll check back in a few minutes and hopefully it'll be done.